What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and today I'm going to try to give you guys a guide on the best BS stones to put on your BS characters, especially since we've had 3 different volumes of BS characters. We've had the first volume, we had BS Orochi, BS Rugal, then we had Nightmare Geese and BS Chrysalid, then we got Ignis and Zero. But each of the volumes have gave us some similar stones, but yet different stones. I mean, in the first volume, we actually got stones that, all the stones have 20% extra attack. They'll get this solid increased attack right here by 10%, right? And then they'll also get this increased attack by 10% here. So it's 20% attack for each stone always. So far, that's been the staple that Netmarble has been doing for us. And then in the volume 1 second stone, in the first stone, it actually gave us blast skill damage increased by 15%. There's no cooldown on this. It's a solid blast skill damage increase. So a stone like this is really going to be good on a character that has multiple blast skills, if not all blast skills. This is going to be an ideal stone for that character. And then in the second volume 1 stone, they actually, of course, you get the double attack again by 20%, but you get an increase to strike skill damage. So this would be a great stone on characters that have multiple strike skill damages, right? And you have 3 active skills on each character, and then you have a default and you have a finisher. And you have to think about, how do you play the character? Where do you play them? Are you spamming their skills? Because if you're spamming their skills, then you're going to be using their active skills more often. So you need to look at, how many grab skills do they have in their active skills? How many strike skills? How many blast skills? And so on. That's how you kind of figure out which are the best stones. And then the last stone here is actually from a different volume. They actually gave us, as far as volume 1, the last stone actually decreases damage received by 30% for 5 seconds when a boss syndrome fighter is attacked. Now, these stones here, these decreased damage received stones, are good stones for survivability, but I found in all the time that I've had these BS characters, even maxed out, playing them in Immortal Dungeons, Guild Raid, I found that I really don't even need this. And I don't think you really would either, especially if you can play them properly. If you do have trouble keeping a character alive, this is going to be an ideal stone for them. And if they're like a low awakened level, say you only got them at 1-star, 2-star, and you're taking them in Immortal Dungeons or even Guild Raid, yeah, they're going to have a little bit more trouble surviving. But there again, you need to look at the kit of the character. What kind of survivability tools do they have? If they have decreased damage received, like Nightmare Geese, if they have like maybe the shield that Zero does, they probably won't need a stone like this because they're going to have enough survivability as it stands just in their kit. So it's really better just to build them straight up for PvE. And really, in my opinion, all these characters, except for maybe BS Orochi, I would build straight up for PvE. That's just my recommendation. You can build a character however you want. But those are the Volume 1 stones. The Volume 2 stones are a little bit different in that the first stone actually decreases enemies' defenses by 20% for 4 seconds upon landing a boss syndrome fighter active skill. This is a very good stone, in all honesty. I mean, decreasing enemy defenses by 20% is very powerful, although I would rather have the solid attack, right? I would rather have the solid attack. But the good thing about this stone is you can actually use it on characters no matter what kind of skills they have. It doesn't matter if it's blast, strike, or grab. This is actually going to buff them up quite a bit because it's decreasing the enemy's defenses, right? So whatever damage you're doing from your active skills, your default, your finisher, you're benefiting from this. The bad thing about this stone is it is on a cooldown. I've actually tested this stone versus a increased damage stone, and the increased damage stone, it does do more damage consistently. So this is a good stone, but it's not a stone that I'd recommend on your highest damage dealing character. That's another thing. Whatever character that you're using in this game that you are using, like mainly in Guild Raid, that you're trying to get the highest score. I mean, we're all going to be using different characters, even though there might be certain metas right now. We're all going to be using certain different characters because in KOF, it's a gacha game. We all have different characters. They're leveled up differently. So it's really up to you on who you build. But you really want to build your characters optimally that you're using as your main damage dealers, especially in Guild Raid. That's very important for you, so you can always get those boxes, keep getting those imprint stones, keep getting those unpairing kits. And that's another thing about this list that's pretty cool, is that you can actually unpair these BS imprint stones, which is pretty cool. So every time we get new imprint stones coming in, we can switch them out for another one. The next stone is decrease damage received by 30%. And I've already talked about this stone. And then the last stone, this is an OP stone from Volume 2. You got the double attack, of course, by 20%. But then you also get this increased active skill damage dealt by boss and fighter by 10%. And if you're spamming your skills, right, this is going to be an insane stone. You're pretty much getting 30% extra attack if you're spamming your skills. If you're playing in a game mode where you're mainly using your PG all the time, you're not going to benefit as much from this. You'll still benefit because you still got to rotate through your skills to build up your PG to do your default or to do your 3 PG. But yeah, if you're spamming your skills, like, when I play Rugal in Guild Raid, this stone's amazing on him because I spam the living hell out of his skills, right? And the same with Chrysalid, actually. And then we have the Volume 3 stones. Now, I don't have all of those babies equipped. The first stone actually gains power. This is a decent stone, maybe for a character that doesn't have any PG rate in their kit. And so far as it stands right now, as far as BS characters, the only character that doesn't is Zero. But I don't think Zero really needs it. To be perfectly honest with you guys, I just don't think he needs it. Zero can reset his skills, so he can do like 6 skills right in a row. He can build those PG super fast. So I really don't think it's a really optimal stone for him. The next stone is the Diamond Stone, and it's actually the same for Volume 3. It's actually the same as this stone right here, right? So you got a Diamond Stone that increases active skill damage, and then you got a Hexagon Stone that can increase active skill damage. The Volume 3 has the Hexagon. I'm sorry, the Volume 2 has the Hexagon, and the Volume 3 has the Diamond Stone that increase active skill damage, which is pretty OP. And then the Hexagon Stone for Volume 3 actually has a critical damage proc that goes up to 10% when it's maxed out. So it looks just like one of these stones right here. You got the double attack by 20%, but then the middle stat here, instead of active skill damage, it's actually critical damage by 10%. Yeah, that is a lot. So characters that have lots of critical rate increases, which you'll find a lot of the BS characters do, that's going to be a good stone for them, because the more often you do critical hits, right, the more you're going to be doing, that critical damage is really going to increase your damage. And characters that do tons and tons of hits, that's going to make a big difference on them. So you're looking for characters that do lots of hits, characters that have a lot of critical rate, maybe a critical rate buff. So these are things to think about. Now, let's get into the best BS stones for each of these characters. Now, this is completely subjective, and this is completely my opinion. I haven't tested all of these. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Definitely when it comes to Rugal, I'm definitely pretty sure, because I've done a lot of testing with my boy Rugal. And actually, the Volume 1 stones on Rugal are actually amazing, because Rugal actually has mixed sets of skills. He has Blast, he has 2 strikes, and then his default's a strike, but then his 3PG is actually a blast. So he's got a mixed blend, so it's actually really good for him to have the Volume 1 stones that increase the blast skill damage, and then the next stone that increases strike skill damage. That really helps with that blend that he's got. And then the last skill, increase active skill damage. I actually got a Volume 2 stone for his third stone. This is the best setup for Rugal, at least in my opinion. Okay, so now we have Chrysalid. And Chrysalid's got a mixed blend of skills. He has 2 grab active skills. He has 1 blast skill as far as an active skill. His default is a grab skill. His 3PG is a strike skill. So he's got this mixed blend of skills going on. So I really think the first stone would be the Volume 2 stone that actually decreases enemies' defenses by 20%. I think that would be the best choice for this guy. And then the second stone would be the Volume 3 stone that actually increases active skill damage. Now, currently I have the decreased damage received by 30% for 5 seconds, but really the increased active skill damage would be better, especially considering he has this mixed blend of skills going on. And then the third skill is exactly what he has on him right now. The increased active skill damage by 10%, or the Volume 3 stone with the critical damage would be a good choice. I actually think the active skill damage would be better, but to be fair, I haven't tested the critical damage stone on him from Volume 3, but I think the Volume 2 stone would be the best. So it's, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 2 stone for Chrysalid. Okay, so then we have Nightmare Geese. Now, Nightmare Geese has a blend also, but he only has blast and strike skills. He's got 2 blast skills and his active skills, 1 strike. And then his default actually is a blast skill, and then his 3PG is a strike skill. So actually having the Volume 1 stones on him would be really good. This increased the blast skill damage. And then the volume 1 for the second stone also, they increase the strike skill damage. I think these 2 stones would be very good on him. He's kind of like Rugal, really. And then the third one would be the volume 2 stone that actually increases active skill damage. I think that would be your best choice. And maybe the critical damage. I'm always going to tell you guys to go with the volume 2 first for the hexagon slot, because it's going to increase your active skill damage. It's a solid stat bonus. You're not depending on critical hits or nothing like that. And I think that's really probably going to be the best choice, especially for a Geese. He doesn't do a tremendous amount of hits, so he's not going to be critting as much as maybe other characters, even though he does have a crit rate increase in his core. Yeah, he's got this little crit rate increase in his core, but he doesn't do a lot of hits. So I think really the volume 2 stone for the third slot would be the best choice for this guy. And then we have BS Orochi. Now, Orochi here actually has 2 blast skills in his active skills, a strike skill for his third skill. And then he has his default's a strike, and then his 3PG's a blast. So again, he's got that mixed blend of blast and strike skill. So you're going to build him like Rugal and Nightmare Geese. You know, the first stone is going to be volume 1. The second stone is going to be volume 1, right? And then the third stone is going to be volume 2 to increase active skill damage. He does do a lot of hits, and he does have a critical rate increase. But I really think the active skill damage would probably be better on Orochi. And let's be honest, I mean, some of you might be using BS Orochi in Guild Raid. You might be using him there. I mean, his 3PG cannot, it can't keep Nightmare Geese from interrupting his skill. It can't keep Rugal from interrupting his skill. The 3PG can be interrupted, is what I'm saying. So a lot of people don't really use BS Orochi. It's kind of wacky that the god of KOF is the one character's 3PG that can actually be interrupted by Omega Rugal or Nightmare Geese in Guild Raid. That's pretty wacky. And then we have Ignis. Now Ignis here, he actually has a blast skill, strike, and grab. So he's got this mixed blend thing going on. And then he has a blast for his default and a blast for his 3PG. And again, build the characters according to their strengths. What skills are you using? Are you using their 3PG more often? And so on and so on. So Ignis here, you should use the volume 2 stone for his first stone. That's the stone that actually increases the enemy's defenses. He doesn't need this gain power, in all honesty. I mean, he's got 30% PG rate in his core. He's going to build up his PG super fast. Plus, he's got that decreased 1 second cooldown on his active skills. He just doesn't need it. He can build up his PG super fast. He doesn't need this gain power. I think the decreases enemy defenses by 20% would be a lot better. For his second stone, I would go with the volume 3 stone, which actually increases active skill damage, especially since he's got this mixed blend. He's got strike, blast, and grab skill. So I would do the volume 3 stone for his next stone. And then for the last stone, the volume 2, which is the increased active skill damage stone. Or actually, the critical damage stone would be good on him, the volume 3 stone. There is a good argument for Ignis really to prefer to have that volume 3 stone instead of the volume 2 stone. I haven't tested it. I would probably go with the volume 2 stone again, because the active skill damage increase is always going to be there. Now, here's the thing about Ignis. Whenever you play Ignis, if you're using him in Nightmare Geese, you're not going to be spamming his skills. You're just going to be mainly using the default, right, and the 3PG a lot, right? You're going to use his active skills, but, maybe you'll spam him, maybe you won't. It really depends on how you play, right? That's the thing. If you're spamming his skills, I think the active skill damage is going to be better. If you're going to be using his 3PG and his default more often, like if you're playing him in a way where you're just constantly using the 3PG and default, rotating through all your characters in Guild Raid, then probably the volume 3 stone with the critical damage would actually be better. So I think the volume 2 stone, if you're going to be using him in a spamming way, if you're spamming his active skills, but if you're going to be using his 3PG and default more often, I think probably the volume 3 stone for this guy. And then we have Zero. Now, Zero is actually really interesting because all of his active skills and his default and his 3PG are all blast skills. Now, I can't show you guys the Imprint stones on this guy because he's an Awaken, but your first stone should be volume 1, the stone that increases your blast skill damage on top of getting the extra 20% attack. That would be insane on this character. And then the second stone would be the volume 3, the increased active skill damage stone. And then the third stone would be volume 2. The hexagon would be to increase the active skill damage. Those are going to be the best stones for him. Now, again, just like Ignis, when I was talking about the volume 3 stone where it has the critical damage, if you could put the volume 3 stone on him, and 0 would actually really do really well. I mean, if you're going to be using his default and his 3PG over and over, and that's how I play him. I don't really spam him, but in the Immortal Dungeons you will. Then maybe the volume 3 stone would be the best with the critical damage. But I would probably recommend just putting the volume 2 stone to have that extra active skill damage. It really depends on how you play these characters. And I know that, you know, this video isn't going to be for everybody. Not everybody has all these characters. Not everybody can just unpair imprint stones on top of maybe not having unpairing kits. I understand that, but I've been getting tons and tons of requests to do this video to give you guys some insight on maybe the best BS stones for each character. And I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT plus 7 time. The link will be in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See ya.